What is going on, you stallions and stallionettes? AK40 Kevin here in the gamer heaven. The PS5 was not ready for launch, not by a long shot. In fact, it's still not ready to be launched at this very date. It's been out for several months, and it's just a big old buggy, sticky, glitchy mess. There's some major issues with the hardware and the software. But hey, had to make that release quarter, had to make that holiday drop to get the actual, I don't know, 200 or 300 units that actually made it into North American homes for the holidays, instead of the hands of scalpers. Major organizations like Crep Chief Notify that have 3,500 units in stock. It's just a big old stinky stinker. Let's talk about it. Alright boys, so just jumping right into this thing, I will say the PS5 itself, the PlayStation 5, is a magnificent piece of hardware. It is incredibly impressive. The amount of performance that they were able to slam into that thick, huge white body that fits into very few people's entertainment centers. But impressive piece of hardware. The controller also very impressive, and the fact that the user interface actually looks and feels next generation. On my Xbox Series S in the living room in there, which shares the same operating system or user interface as the Series X as well, it feels just like my Xbox One X. It's literally the same as last generation, but with like dynamic themes and a couple new tiles on the home menu. It's more or less the interface from the last generation. At least Sony did make a modern next-gen experience with the user interface, but the user interface is kind of broken though. Just navigating the user interface, a lot of users are reporting some major bugs and glitches. Their console's freezing and having to restart them, and that's really unfortunate. Now granted, a lot of these could have been massaged out if the console were to be pushed and maybe launched sometime in mid-21, which is probably when both consoles should have been launched. I'm going to cover multiple reasons why that is the case, why they're not ready for launch in their current condition. Specifically, though, the PS5. So a big old fat one here is that the PS5 only has 667 gigabytes of onboard storage in 2021. Think about that for a second. Most AAA titles are well over 100 gigabytes. Then, if you have a multiplayer mode, you have additional, map packs and downloads, updates that you get every month that adds even more gigabytes on and on. Before you know it, you have a 200 gigabyte file for one game. And there's an NVMe slot on board for expandable memory that you can't do anything with at all. Sony does not sell a proprietary memory expansion yet, and they're claiming that eventually you'll be able to pop in any 4.0 NVMe SSD into that slot, and as long as it has the same rated read and write speeds as the internal drive, which I believe is 5.0, that you're going to be able to run it. However, it's still software blocked from Sony. It's still firmware blocked out. You can't do anything with that slot, so you're stuck with that 667 gigabytes, which would not be a huge issue if they were handling the situation kind of how Xbox did with the Series S and X, where you can use an external drive. I have a 4 terabyte external drive plugged into the back of my Series S right now that you actually can play games from as long as they're Xbox One, Xbox 360, Xbox Legacy, so the first Xbox, not Xbox One, but literally Xbox One titles. You can play them there. The only games you cannot play off of a plugged-in external drive are Series S and X games that are optimized for the new-gen consoles. So either Xbox One games that are buffed with the frame rate for the Series S and X, or games that are specifically for the S and X, which there really aren't any. We'll cover that in a little bit. Like exclusives, where are they? Not there. But even those modern titles, those Series S and X optimized titles, like for example the Halo Master Chief Collection, which by the way, I have been playing at 120 frames per second at 1440 upscaled on the Series S, and it looks and feels amazing. HDR engaged. It looks and feels better than it did on my Xbox One X. Zero load times. The frame rate's insane. It just feels good. For a console experience, it feels very good. I will say that. It feels good to the touch, boys. But you can transfer those games back and forth between the external drive and the internal drive. So if I wanted to play Halo Master Chief and then I beat all of them, and I want to play something else, instead of having to uninstall that game and then reinstall at a later time, which takes longer to do that, not to mention a lot of internet providers, Cox, Spectrum, AT&T, they have data caps. Now, granted, they're like, 1,200 and something. It's over a terabyte of data down and up, but still, if you're deleting and then re-downloading games over and over, that's going to add up and you're going to go over your data cap. So that's something to keep in mind right there. But with my Series S, I can transfer back and forth as much as I want, and it's very quick. The external hard drive I have is very speedy. the read and write speed, so it can transfer games much quicker than I could download them, not to mention I'm not using my data for my internet plan, which is great. PlayStation has no such thing. You can plug in an external hard drive, however, you can't game from it, and you cannot even store PlayStation 5 specific titles on there, and if you try and put your PS5 into rest mode while that's plugged in, it corrupts the drive. It automatically just corrupts the drive. You have to go back to your PC, reformat it, and then try and put your games back on there. So the only solution is to completely shut down your PS5. But what if you want to leave it in rest mode or standby mode, so it's still downloading game updates in the background, maybe charging your controller, stuff like that? Now you just have to completely shut down your PS5 if you don't want to corrupt your external hard drives. And you can't use a NVMe expansion because those don't exist yet. Like the Xbox Series S and X launched with granted it's very expensive, but they did launch with a Microsoft proprietary plug-in expansion, a 1 terabyte NVMe expansion. And they have support for external. The next one, lack of games. PS5 had more launch titles, more exclusives, but not a lot's come out since then, and it's not enough. There's not enough original content for the PS5, and especially the Xbox. They don't have any major first-party studio titles because obviously Halo Infinite got delayed. So again, these consoles could have been launched mid-21, more games would have been available. They would have had NVMe expansions. They would have had all these updates done to where you can transfer to an external hard drive. It's just ridiculous. There's also a lot of stability issues with existing games where people are getting some weird bugs and glitches specifically on the new gen consoles. So not on the Xbox One and PS4, not on PC. Next, the Wi-Fi connection on the PS5, from all my research, is not stable at all. People's downloads are dropping. They'll come back, they'll leave a download on overnight, expecting to have their game ready to be launched the next day, and it's stuck at exactly the same part of the download. And people are like, what the heck? I have super good Wi-Fi. You check your phone, that's connected, your PC's connected. Granted, you can connect via Ethernet, but the Wi-Fi card on board, I think, is probably an outdated chipset or something, because it's not stable. It's not stable. It's dropping a lot of people's downloads. I haven't heard too much about people's online experience, like mid-game and stuff like that, ping going through the roof or anything like that. But I'm assuming that if people's downloads are getting frozen, that's probably something else as well. And all these issues add up to the fact that consoles aren't really simplistic, minimalistic, and plug and play anymore. They're not like, PC was kind of if you wanted to tweak and tinker to get the best experience, but consoles had that beauty of simplicity. You just pop a disc in there, grab a controller, turn your TV on, and you're gaming. And a good percentage of the time it's not working like that, which makes it's making people think, like, why am I just not on PC then? Like, I was on a console because it's just simple to play, and it's not that simple anymore. There's all these drivers getting installed in the background, daily updates to fix user interface bugs and glitches. And the biggest reason these consoles were not ready for launch when they were released, the Xbox Series S and X as well as the PS5, both versions, is that Sony and Microsoft had a massive lack of stock. They didn't have enough inventory to fulfill orders. They built up a ton of hype. People are stuck at home due to the pandemic, so even more people are buying these consoles, not to mention we hadn't had a new console in 7.5 years. People wanted to buy these. They knew that they were going to sell out of pre-orders instantaneously, which they did. They knew they had a lack of stock due to production slowdowns in the factory due to, again, the pandemic and whatnot. They knew all that. They could have planned for this and been like, you know what, guys, due to our lack of stock, we don't want to have major scalping issues and whatnot. We're going to push it until, spring, summer of 21. That would have been the intelligent decision to do, but they want to satisfy the shareholders. They need to get that holiday drop in there to, maximize profits and make the investors happy and whatnot. So that led, low supply, high demand in electronics goods. What does that lead to? Oh, okay, scalpers running bots and scripts, and that's exactly what's been the issue, and it's still the issue to this day. So granted, I did just mention a bunch of negative things about these consoles, specifically the PlayStation 5. However, $500, you cannot build a PC that will run games with the same performance and fidelity as a PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. And S for that matter. You can't build a $300 PC that'll perform like an Xbox Series S. These new gen consoles are very impressive with the APU on board, the architecture. But if we're going to do the whole cost is an issue, bang for buck, consoles are the way to go kind of thing, you can also make well over $300 a month after electrical costs by mining with the new 30 series graphics cards if you can get your hands on one of those, which leads to, I've done the calculations in a previous video, paying off your 3080 graphics card, if you do pay retail or close to retail, in just under 3 months, about 2.7 months, 2.5 months. And paying off a 3090, that's a $1,500 graphics card, which I know is a big upfront cost. However, you're going to get your return on investment in slightly under 5 months. So about 4.5 months, you're going to be able to pay off that $1,500 graphics card. Keep mining for a few months, you've just paid off your whole gaming PC. Keep mining after that. When you're not gaming or doing video editing or streaming or whatever it is you do on your PC, have it mining overnight like I do and while I'm at work, and bam, passive income for you right there. And I've done extensive research. You cannot mine with a PS5 or an Xbox Series X. It has the hardware to do it. It has an APU, which is a mixture of a GPU and a CPU melded together. But because of the way consoles operate, you would have to get a mining program or suite through Sony or Microsoft plugged into their device, and they don't support that. They don't have the drivers for it, and they don't want people mining on their console. So mining on a new gen console is out of the question there. But think about this little tidbit though. You get a 3080, like I said, you paid off your card in 3 months. You mine another 2 or 3 months. You've just paid off like your whole PC. Then you mine a couple more months, and you can buy yourself a PS5 with your 3080 graphics card. Just putting that out there. Food for thought for you guys to taste. I'm just pulling out my spoon. Here comes the airplane. Just feeding you a little food for thought. Just something to consider. You know, I do have one of the new gen consoles in my living room. I have the Xbox Series S. Absolutely love it, but I hardly play it, to be honest. I'm mostly on the PC here. And again, it's not a controller thing. I can always just plug a controller into the top of my tower here. But if I want keyboard and mouse, I have that too. If I want to stream, you have a better streaming experience from PC. You can crypto mine from it. You can video edit from it. You can do your schoolwork from it. You can build PowerPoint presentations for a business. You can do a lot more on a PC. I know this just I did not want to turn this into a PC is better than console video, but it seems like consoles have some issues. So for those few proud console fanboys that are always saying like, oh, it sound like PC problems, never have to worry about that on a console. I just plug her in, press power, and I get to gaming. It's not really the case anymore. Seems like you guys are having some major issues there with the PS5. And it's not just 1 or 2 PS5s. This is the community as a whole. If you look at a lot of the forums, there's a lot of people complaining about these issues on PS5. So that's going to do it, guys. Drop in the comment section below if you own a PlayStation 5 and you're having any of these issues, if you have a Series S or X and you're having issues as well, or if you're having a PC and you're experiencing some crappy issues too, because, you know, PCs are big, janky bundles of crap as well. It's going to do it, guys. Peace.